Okay, good morning. So we're up to Siman Reish Nun Daled Seif Base. Ein Tzoilin Botzol or Beitza Ebasa. You can't roast onions, eggs, or meat al gabi gecholim on the coals. Ele kadesh yitzle miboid yoim mishneit stadim k'maychel ben drusoi shevchatzi b'shalei. You can only leave them there al gecholim if they have been roasted on both sides. K'maychel ben drusoi, which is half cooked. Afilu hu bosagdi, even if it's goat meat, which is tender and it cooks more quickly. Then what's the reason? The kiven shenich al gabi gecholim, since he's put them by the coals, his whole concern is that it roasts very quickly, even though it might burn, and therefore there is a real concern of shem yechate. He might stoke the coals. But once it's already roasted, that's half cooked. We're no longer concerned that he's going to come to stoke the coals. Even if it's ox meat, which is much tougher and takes longer to cook. Because if it's already Meichel ben Drusoi and therefore it's Roi Lachila, why would he stoke it if it might come to burn and it will ruin the meat? Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah, Sifkot and Tez Zayin. Botzelo Beitza. V'huadin shari devarim she'ein echolin chayin, and so too other things which cannot be eaten raw. Al gabi gecholim, hainu shenoigin begecholim, i.e. they're actually touching the coals. Now if you look at 8, he says the following: Afal pi shehanochas kadeira al gabi gecholim. When it came to putting the kadeira al gabi gecholim, kosav shulchan aruch leel in Reish Nun Gimel Sif Aleph, shedina katmona b'davar meisiv hevel. You're insulating it. You're doing hatmona on a davar which is meisiv hevel, va'asura gam be'erev Shabbos. So what's going on? So bi'a primagodim shekol zeh eina ele b'kadeira. That's because it's in a pot. Since the sides of the pot are being warmed by the coals, that this is considered hatmana. Here we're talking where you're putting the food without a kadeira. You're not warming up the sides of the pot, and therefore this is not a concern of hatmana. Okay, so this is without a pot. So Hainu Nochamal, says the Mishnah Berurah Sifkot and Yuzayin, Hainu shenoigin begecholim. They're touching the food is touching the gecholim. And then after it's roasted, you wait until the coals die out, and then you take the food. Again, if you look at 9, now we said previously, the Ramah says in Reish Nun Gimel that if you've got a kadeira which is put on top of coals, you should keep it a little bit detached, the pot from the coals, Kodim Shabbos, before Shabbos, so that when it comes to Shabbos, you can take the pot easily without moving any of the coals. But if it was quite sort of embedded in the coals, then you should ask a Nochri, a non-Jewish person, to take the pot. And only then, if there's no Nochri there, then the Yisrael can take it. Benachas, you take it gently, without moving the coals. But if it's the gecholim are really surrounding the kadeira, Kazah Mishnah Berurah, she'also the Yisrael little misham es hakadeira mishum shalidei netilosa bevada yechta begecholim. Certainly, is going to move the coals by doing so. V'yavir bekach is a gecholim. You're going to make the upper ones burn, and you're going to put out the lower ones. So that's what you should avoid doing. Okay, that's just an important reminder. Okay, good. Let's go back to the Mishnah Berurah. So we're in Reish Nun Daled Sif Beis. We're in Sifkot and Yud Zayin, half a line in. V'hinei hatam t'chashinan b'zeh shem yechate. The reason why in this sif you're worried you might come to stoke the coals, afilu b'basa gadi, even if it's goat meat, which is very tender, like the Mechaber goes on to say, the kiven she'nichu that since he's placed it, he's shown that he wants it to be cooked quickly, and he's not caring. He doesn't care if it's yischarich, if it's going to get singed, and therefore with choishes shem yichata, that you might come to actually stoke it to speed up the process. Avol im yitzem says the kivish anichud v'chula. Avol im yitzle besamach legechalim. But if he roasts it close to the coals, not on the coals, but close nearby, then kvanis boy b'sif aleph das hamachaber the boss gdi v'oif she'urach lo chashin kol lechitui. According to the machaber previously, that if it's boss gdi v'oif, we're not worried about chitui. Because by being mechate, which is speeding up the cooking and making it hotter, and you're gonna ruin the meat. And therefore you would be allowed, according to that, to put it close to Shabbos. You're allowed to put the boss gdi there. Because we're not worried. There's no concern of Shem Yechatev, otherwise you'll come to ruin the meat. Fuadin botzel or beitza. And that would also be true when it comes to botzel and an onion, or beitza and an egg. Over botzel shar va'oiz, but when it comes to the tough meat, shel kasha, then boinan she nitz the kol tzarchem b'boyijim dafka. It's got to be properly cooked before Shabbos. Di lav hachi chashinan lechitu. But otherwise we're choishes for chitu. Ki lo yipasid al dei achitu kiven shehu eina munach al gabi gecholim. Because there lo yipasid al dei chitu. He's not going to ruin it because it's not mamish on the coals, which is the case of our sif. V'das haramah, and the Ramah who argues with there, he says there is no difference whether it's on the coals or near the coals, or whether it's basa shar, it's ox meat, or whether it's chicken or goat meat. The shear always is Michael ben Drusoi v'im tuach batit, and if the oven is sealed, sharli the day b'chol gavni litnei somach l'chashecha. We're not worried he'll break open the seal. Okay, Yudches afilu hu kwas gedi. Hainu afilu hu munutach, even if it's cut up into pieces to make kidden le'el besif aleph. Okay, good. Gimel. Im ovar oishachach, says the Mechaber, if a person violated this halacha, oishachach, or he just forgot, v'nitzle b'Shabbos be'issa, and he went ahead and did this roasting against halacha, osa, the food now becomes osa. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sifkat Yutes, ovar, shenosen b'mezid, somach l'chashecha kolkach, that he put it intentionally, close to Shabbos, so close that he won't be able to cook K'Michael ben Drusoi before Shabbos came in. And therefore it cooked, it roasted in the time when it was prohibited to do so. Or he forgot, it wasn't b'mezid, he forgot, and he put it there on the kira and it roasted on Shabbos. We say that it's also even b'di'evet, because we're worried that the person might say, hey, I didn't realize, I forgot, and he'll make up all these excuses, and therefore Chazal say you can't even have it b'di'evet. Also, bein la'acherim, whether it's him, whether it's other people, ad motzei Shabbos b'chdei sheyasu. You got to wait. B'chdei sheyaseh chudel b'siman reishon gimel sif aleph. What is b'chdei sheyaseh? So if you take a look at number 11, a useful note of a tam hadova shetzorich lahamdin b'chdei sheyaseh kosav abi aloch le'el shledas Rashi. The reason why Chazal say that you've got to wait the time the issa was violated on Motzei Shabbos, you've got to wait the time it took to violate it. Says Rashi in Shabbos Yudches, kedei shelo yehenu melecha Shabbos. You shouldn't get benefit from melacha done on Shabbos. Ve'ilu ledas Rambam, the concern is that you shouldn't benefit and then come to do it the second time around. So just a very important machlekas why Chazal made this takana of Kadesh Yasu. According to Rashi, it's because that you shouldn't benefit from Melecha Shabbos, and according to the Rambam that you shouldn't benefit and you shouldn't come to do it again and be makel in a future occasion. Okay, let's just do Dalet. Peiros shene'echolin chayim. Peiros, fruit which can be eaten raw. Mutza litneim soviv hakedera. You're allowed to put them around the pot. Even though they're not going to get roasted to Michael ben Drusoi or whatever level before Shabbos, that's allowed. You got to be careful not to put the cover on on Shabbos, or not to add olav which they're now going to become roasted, because that would accelerate the cooking process on Shabbos. Okay, so let's take a look. Says the Mishnah Berurah Chaf Aleph, Soviv HaKadera, you're allowed to put fruit around the Kadera, even though they're raw, even though they're Chaim. Says Mishnah Berurah Sifkot Chaf Aleph, VaKadera imedes ala pitput, the Kadera, the pot, is sitting on this tripod, v'tachteho yesh eish, and there's some fuel, there's a flame, there's a fire underneath it. For Kamash Malon, to Mutza Litzin Kodim Chashecha Peres Saviva, you're allowed to put fruits nearby around it, afsha Peres Nogin Boish, even if they're actually touching the fire. And they're being roasted on Shabbos through the flame itself, and that's allowed to put them there on Erev Shabbos. What about all the concerns we've had till now? And it's not the same as bossa botzel beis we had in Sif Beis. You're not allowed to put them there unless they're roasted by Jim Kamach Ben Drusai. What's the difference? Here, because the fruits can be eaten raw, it's got the same status as bot meat, which has already been cooked by Michael ben Drusai, because I can eat these things already. These fruits are actually better if they weren't cooked than if they were cooked. Than other food which is in special by Michael ben Drusai. In other words, the shear for shehiyah for meat is Michael ben Drusai. These fruits, they're actually better than meat, which is Michael ben Drusai, because I can eat them raw. So what?
And if it's raw meat, which is also.
So if it's raw meat, then you've got the heter of raw meat. But if it's I'm putting there for Shabbos. But if you've got food which is not yet Michael ben Drusai, then you've got a problem of shehiyah. But he's saying over here that raw fruit is actually in a way better than Michael ben Drusai meat, because I actually eat the stuff raw. And therefore I'm not going to come to mechate, because I can actually eat these fruit raws, and therefore the whole concern is shem yechate. I'm not going to do that with raw fruit. That which he says sov kadera v'leinokat stoma to mut litnei mala'ish, so you can actually put it on the fire. It's just telling me the normal way of things. And that's what they would do in those days. They would got a little tripod with the fuel, and they put the pot on top, and then near the coals or near the fire, they would put the fruit to warm it up and to have to eat that. Inami alternatively mishum dinakisu dinaka b'seifa the shaykh b'uderi nogde, or because of the seifa which we're going to come to now, that's why he says soviv and not al gecholim. Okay, sif cotton chof base. What was that going on? Yeah, so even though these fruits won't get roasted fully before Shabbos, says the Mishnah Berurah Chaf Beis, and we're not. It's not the same as the onion, which we said in Sif Beis, which is also to do that. Even though occasionally you do eat an onion raw, it's not the same as eating an apple. Right, so everyone eats an apple. I remember I have a friend who's in their family on Friday night, that when they would have the chopped liver, everyone had next to them a raw onion. That was their thing. Or no, it was either the soup, I think. When it came to the soup, they would eat a raw onion, and this is makav. No, this is what they would do in Chvesia. They would eat. They eat a raw onion, and they would have the bowl of soup there. They would eat the soup, and at the same time they would eat the onion. Okay, but if it was a chiddush for me, I didn't see that before. But that's different. But it's not the same as eating apples. But it's things which cannot be eaten, not so gushmak to eat raw, then they've got the same status as botzel and beitza. So tapuch yar means like a baked apple. They're bitter and they're not so nice to eat raw, but if they're baked, they're very nice. Chaf gimel not to put the lid back on after mitzat hakadera, even though at the mitzad hakadera, im niskale b'Shabbos hakisu sheloi shekiser memala sheloi yitzdanin mutzah lachzav v'lachasoso ve'echein ha'isv v'lav. Even though if the pot of the top of the tefillin lids comes off, you can put it back on. That's talking about a case where it's nispashal miboydim, it's already cooked from before Shabbos, so you're not accelerating the cooking process by putting the lid back on. But here, by putting the pot lid back on, you're going to actually accelerate the cooking process, therefore it's considered also. Okay, Shemamai Ligmar, Sif Cotton Chaftalid, the Kolshken She'osel Anichem B'Shabbos Gufa, Samach Chetana Kedei. And certainly you can't put these fruits on Shabbos nearby in order that you're going to roast the fruit. Even if you put them before the fire came on, it's going to be also because the elba soif siman ration gimel. But before Shabbos, you can put them on a warm oven or a bekachlen. Those were the ovens we spoke about previously. Doesn't mean dark, it means koydem l'shkia. V'ayim b'simin reish samachalef b'din ben hashmoshes. Okay, just a note to number 15. V'tamat dava, this is going on. That we said also lanichem b'Shabbos gufa latanu kadei letzalis. You can't do it on Shabbos, and if you put it there koydem shosuk is also. V'hatam, and the reason is shari gzek k'moshe nosen es hamayim b'kader shel acha mikan nosen achar es ha'esh. Why is it also? Because if the fire is not on, the fire comes on afterwards. What have you done wrong? You've just put the peiros there. If the fire is going to come on later, then it's a ma'aser bishul that happens afterwards. So he says it's still also. Why? So he says tamadova is in 15 because it's like someone who put water on a pot and then somebody else came along and put the fire. She'af harishan oval issa drabonim. The first guy is over issa drabonim. So you can't do that. Okay, we'll leave it there.